Hi, today we'll be building a background image remover website. So let's get started. First of all, you'll need to create a project in VS Code. So I've done that already. So once you create the project, what you have to do is you have to create your first file, that is main.py. So once you're done with that, so what I did was uh, created a virtual environment so it would be easier to manage dependencies. So what we need to do is, for the virtual environment, you'll need to do python -m venv and dot. So that would create your virtual environment. I already have it created. So once you have done that, you just go to the scripts folder and run the activate script depending upon your command shell. So in this case we had PowerShell, so we run the PowerShell script. So once you have done with that, you install the two dependencies that we'll need today is remove.bg and pillow and fast API. So we install all three of them. So mine were already installed, so it got installed pretty quick. So you're done with installation, so you come to main.py. So what we'll do first is import fast API. So for that, what you need to do is from fast API import fast API. So that's the first thing. We'll create our app is equal to fast API. Then we create our first function. That would be our first, what we say, call, so that we can verify our server is running. So we'll just give it our root path and then we'll define a function that we say hello world. We won't put any parameters in it. And just return the normal structure of first API, that was the message, and the key would be congrats. So what we'll do is first check this out if this is working. So what we need to do is to run our fast API server, we just say fast API dev and main.py. So this would run our server and we can go to the second link, API docs. It would open in our Chrome. So as we see here, we have our first API. Let me zoom in a bit. So it's returning a string. Let's execute it, and this is our message that we got. So once you're done with setting this up, now let's come to our main function that would be actually removing the background. So we'll say app dot, this one would be a post function. The URL would be, let's say, remove underscore background. So this is the path that would be using. Let's give a function name background underscore remover. Put in our, so we'll need, as this is a post function, we'll need a body for the request. So I'll show you where you need to put the body. For now, just return an empty string, just so we don't see those errors. So the body of the function would be, we'll have to declare it over here in the parameter. So what we are going to receive is a file. So let's say, and we give it the type as image file. So we haven't created this yet. So what we'll need to do is we have to create it. Before creating it, we'll need to import a model library from Pydantic that would say that use this model while creating the request body. So let's go ahead and do that. That's Pydantic, and from Pydantic import base model. So once you're done with that, now let's come up. We'll say our class is this image file, and we'll give it our only parameter is we'll take the image as a string. So I'll tell you what kind of string we need to take. We can't take it as a normal string. So we'll see how that works. So you have your file. Now the first thing is we'll take the input from our file. So our normal image string would be file.image string. So that's the first step. Now what you need to do. So when receiving this file, we won't receive it as a normal image. That would be not in a binary format. It would be in a string format. And to send images over like APIs, what we generally do is use base64 encoded strings. So in this case, our thing would be the image would be in base64 encoded string. So we'll have to decode it. So that would be image binary bytes, whatever you like to call it. And then we'd say let's first import base64. We'll use this library to call it. So base64 dot b64 and decode. So we'll pass it our string, image string. Okay. Cool. Now we are done with this. Now let's move to the next step. Once we have the decoded image, we'll need to generate it into bytes. So for the bytes, we'll have to import from the IO package of Python. We'll have to import bytes IO in order to work with the bytes. So let's say image bytes, and that would be bytes. Okay, bytes IO, and the thing would be image byte. So now we have our bytes. So the bytes we have, will first need to convert those bytes into a pillow image. So in order to do that, we'll first import pillow. The pillow library, when importing it, we need to call it as PIL. So let's say PIL img, that is our pillow image, is equal to PIL dot image dot open, and we give it our bytes. Okay, cool. So now we have the pillow image. Now we can come to the final step, that is to remove our background. So to remove our background, we need to import remove.bg, and from remove.bg we'll import the remove function. From remove.bg import remove. So now we can directly call remove, and to remove we'll pass in the PIL image. So this is our background removed image. So let's give it save it in this, and so we cannot send it directly, right? So we'll have to first save it in bytes like we did it for earlier image. Okay, now we have our background image, background removed from the image. Now we'll give it a name. We have to send these bytes out, right? So first we'll create bytes IO object. Now this is to store the PIL image as a binary format, right? So once you have that image, and what we can do is background removed image, and we'll say save it to what, the output bytes, and we'll give it a format as the general format for background removed image is PNG. So in order to have the transparent background. So these were the only steps. Now you are pretty much done. Now you just need to send this response. Okay, but now as you see, you don't have response, right? So you can just click quick fix and import from fast API. Now the first thing would be to as we remembered earlier, right, we decoded the string. So while sending also, we'll have to encode the string. So we'll call the base64 encode, and yeah, base64 encode basically. And then for our out bytes, we'll say get value. so this function called, and after that this would be our status code would be 200, and media type would be text slash base 64. Cool. So our function is done, the background image removal part is done. So yeah, and we'll be calling the the front end of this website would be running on a different server. So we'll say um, any other server, right? So what would happen is when you call this server and from a different like endpoint, so it would give you a course error. To fix that course error, what we do is from first we'll call the middleware, course middleware basically. So you go middleware dot course and import course middleware. So yeah, and to add the course middleware, we'll say app dot middleware dot, yeah, to add the middleware we'll say app dot add middleware, and to that add middleware we'll just copy and paste. These are like the default options for fast API 2, and in place of this origins what we'll do is we'll say a blank like list, and to that list we'll add a star. So what this would say is allow all the origin, but in place of this you can give your actual origin. So we don't know that, so that's why we are putting just a star for now. You can put in actual like address of what your server is running at, that would work fine. So we are done with our backend. Now let's get to building our front end. So let's create a new folder, call it front end. Okay, and now add a file, call it index.html. Just put in our boilerplate HTML5 boilerplate. Change our thing to background remover. Cool. Now over here we need to do a bunch of things, right? So you can create a separate like script, file, JavaScript file, but let's do it over here only. It would be much simpler. And the other thing is we'll add uh, a couple of the other thing is we'll add a couple of tags that we'll need, just a couple of tags. The first one would be an image tag. Okay, and let's give our image tag an ID, call it image final. And the second tag would be an input tag to put our image. Cool. Let's name it img input. This to be img input. Okay, cool. So now we need to build now we have both our tags that we need to remove our background. So we need to do a couple of things. First we need to take the image from this image tag. Whenever it's like changed, we take that image and convert it into a base 64. Then the next thing we do is we send it to we call the API, send that base 64 string, and in response we get base 64 string of the background removed image. And once we get that, we put it into the our image source tag, the image tag into the source. Okay, so let's see how to do this. It's quite simple. Let's write the script. First we'll declare a function that would call back remover. Okay, and we'll get the bytes from the file. So what we did is from the element we got the first file. So now we'll say after that we'll need to have it in an array buffer. So let's call it arb and we'll say await array buffer. So how do you get it all it already the image bytes already, like in JavaScript they already have a array buffer function. You can just call that array buffer. That's yeah. So we declared await over here. So we want to first load the file. So we'll have to say our function is an asynchronous function. So we added our async tag, the error is gone. Now to what we say, yeah. So now we convert this bytes of an array to uh, like a base 64 string. So we'll call it const base 64 image, and we'll go B to A, that would be bytes to like ASCII character. And then what we'll do is we'll say new unsigned integer array. Okay, we'll give it our array buffer. We'll call the reduce function. Then what we'll do is we'll say data and bytes. So this arrow function, what it would do is it would give us like the base 64 encoded string. So in order to get that, we'll say data plus string from char code byte, and at the end we just so JavaScript understand it's a string. So you have this base 64 encoded string. So let's create a new request. So we'll name it Rick and would be new request. Okay, and then over here we'll say we'll first give it the URL. So that would be local host colon 8000 slash, let's check in our main, that is remove background. So we'll put it over here. Okay, so that's done. Then we'll add our what we say method body and all that stuff. So method would be post, the headers would be like an array of an array of array. So first header, and the only header that we need is we'll need to say what type of file we are sending, content we are sending. So we'll say content, misspelled content, give the closing brackets and then say application slash JSON. Okay, then we'll give our body, that would be JSON dot stringify. We'll put our this, so like we said in our Python file, right? So this should be called image string, so we'll have to give it the same thing, and then our base 64 image. So this is what we'll need to give, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so our request is made. Now all we need to do is call our request. So we'll say const response is equal to await fetch and pass in our request. So once that is done, const image is equal to await response dot text. So now what we'll do is we'll say what should we say? We should say document dot get element by id our id this time would be the image tag, what we said, right? Image. So that was image final. Cool. Then we'll say source. What should the source be equal to is data colon image slash, so the data is image slash png, and the text is base 64, right? It's encoded in base 64, and we just append our image to it, the response that we got. Okay, so this would load our, what we say, the image. Cool. Now this is done. Now what we'll need to do is this back remove function. Anytime this input tag is changed, let's say on change, you'll have to call this back remover function. Okay, so our front end is also completed, our back end is also completed. Okay, we missed one thing, right? So this, whenever you create this models, you'll have to extend them from base model, right? So you'll have to give like a parent class for this as a base model, then only it would work. So now let's run our server again. Our server is running. Now let's come to our HTML file, open a new terminal, say go live. This should be live, and now let's choose our image. So I'll choose this image. Okay, so our call didn't run, so it says localhost 8000, it wasn't able to reach. So what I think would be the problem is we didn't add the protocol over here. Let's add the protocol and check it once again. I'll just do a refresh, choose files, I'll say choose the file. Okay, so this gave us an error of 422. That means there's something wrong with our request. So let's check our request. Method headers. So yeah, so this should be content type. So this should run now. Let's try uploading an image and check if this is working. Let's select our image, open. Get pivot. What we're saying is invalid image response. Let's check our image. What's wrong with that? Data colon image slash png base 64. I think we need to add a comma after this. Let's try it now. Yeah, we have our image with the background removed. So if you want to see, I can show you the initial image as well that we are trying to. So let me check the folder. This is this background remove. So if I go here in Files Explorer and see the original image, so the original image looks like this, and this is how our background was removed. So I went ahead and did some more styling to this and to make it look a little bit better. So now you can see the original image and the background removed image. So that looks something like this. Yeah. So you can make this pretty much like in half an hour if you start new as well. If you want this code, I'll link it down in the description and give the steps how you can install it without like needing to change anything. So that's it. Thanks for watching. And if you want to know a little more detail about the remove.bg API, you can look at my previous video. Thanks for watching.